Tell us a spooky story, Grandpa.
You're too young for any of my stories.
Come on, Grandpa, tell us a good one.
There's no such thing as a good ghost story.
He's just stalling. He doesn't know any good ghost stories. Only stories about the Depression, when they had to hide their horse so it wouldn't get eaten.
Well, okay. But this won't be a phony story about guys in hockey masks and chainsaws. This story will be about spirits that roam the eternal nights.
Okay, that's good. Now I've got a story. Once upon a time, there was this guy.
The kind that won't give you nightmares.
They're close tonight.
Who?
Spirits. They're restless. Listen, close. Crack of a twig, the rustling of the leaves, the bay of a dog. That's not the wind moaning in the trees. No, look at the fire, the way it's dancing, curling smoke around the logs. This is a spirit's night. Kind of night when you're afraid to look into the shadows for fear that something there is staring back at you. They're out there tonight, staring at you. You feel them? Sniff the air. It's bittersweet, like their afterlives. Smell it?
Working in the cemetery.
Right, the graveyard shift.
So whose tombstone was it?
I'm getting to that. Now, where was I?
The small tombstone in the cemetery.
Right. The area around the tombstone was badly neglected, and the weeds were covering up the stone, so I couldn't read the name. Well, I pulled the weeds over and cleaned the debris off of it, and there was just one word chiseled on the stone: Betsy. For some strange reason, I felt sad, so I took some wildflowers and I placed them by the stone. I noticed that bittersweet smell. I thought it must be the flowers. Every couple of days after that, I attended especially to Betsy's grave, always feeling just a little sad afterwards. And as the weeks passed, the grass in the cemetery just got browner and browner with each bitter frost. Everywhere except around Betsy's grave. Funny, I thought to myself, so I had a talk with the head groundskeeper about it. And you know what he did? You know what he did? He asked if I've been drinking. Seems the grass on that grave never seemed to take, and it's been dead for over 50 years and brown. Next day I went back to see Becky's grave, and the grass is all fresh and green, like the springtime. So I stuck a couple flowers on the grave and went back to the groundskeeper. Again he asked if I'd been drinking. I checked it yesterday, he said, and the grass is as dead as the person under it.
Wait a minute, I think I heard this one. Doesn't she cut off all her hair and then go stab somebody with the scissors?
This isn't a ghost story. This is a love story.
Yes, but it's a tragic one. On that fateful night, All Hallows Eve to be exact, Betsy dressed up in a fresh white dress and sat down on her bed waiting for her grandfather to go to sleep before lighting a candle and placing it in her window, a signal to Henry. She waited and waited, then fell asleep. The next thing she knew, she was awakened by a single gunshot. Her grandfather had heard noise by the hen house and gone outside. Or maybe, just maybe, he was waiting for poor Henry. Either way, he raised his shotgun and he fired one shot. It sailed true, piercing Henry's heart. By the time Betsy ran outside, her grandfather had dragged the lifeless body into the shadows. "Pesky raccoons," she heard him say as he threw the gun over his shoulder and took her by the arm to take her back to her room, locking her inside for the first of many nights to come. Betsy could not forget Henry, and at night her grandfather heard her crying herself to sleep. In desperation, he forged a note from Henry, telling her he had found another and begging her to forget him. But the grandfather's plan backfired. Thinking Henry had left her for another, Betsy dressed in her white dress and walked down to the banks of that small lake off the parkway. Her grandfather found her the next day, her small body floating face down in the water. To this day, there are reports of a man's figure lurking in the shadows of the apple trees that stood next to the ground where the hen house had been. And on bittersweet evenings such as this, there can still be seen in the upstairs window a candle burning brightly, ever so brightly, in the dark, deserted house.
What happened to the grandfather?
He went mad, so they say. Hung himself in the barn a year to the day he shot Henry. They say he claimed Betsy would come to him at night, dressed in her white dress, her long hair flying behind her, crying for her lover. Sometimes he'd walk into a room and come face to face with her reflection, staring blank-eyed at him from inside the mirror, or see her angelic face peering inside a window, her hands touching the glass as to wonder why he kept her out. Then on that cold October night, he came up the stairs and found her sitting on her bed, brushing her golden hair so it curled around her pretty face. An angel she was, an angel of death, come to take him back with her. I've heard that the death can reach out like that, can reach out and touch the living, haunting those with secrets as dark as the night, touching those who have somehow touched what is left of their existence. That day in the cemetery, when I cut the grass and put some in my pocket to show the groundskeeper, well, I got home and remembered it in my pocket. This very handkerchief, in fact. But instead of grass in the handkerchief, there's a lock of Betsy's golden hair.